Welcome to this pre-countdown status briefing for STS-133, Discovery's mission to the International Space Station. We have two briefers here today to give us the latest on Discovery's preps for its upcoming launch. First off, we have Jeff Spaulding, NASA Test Director.
Good morning.
And Kathy Winters, the Shuttle Weather Officer.
Good morning.
We'll start off with the latest and I guess make a little bit of news here and then open it up to questions.
All right, and thank you, Allard, and good morning to everyone. And normally I would be here just providing our normal launch countdown status to you and updating you on the events leading up to the countdown and some of the major milestones. But last night when we were doing our tank press to flight mode, we did have a couple of leaks that occurred, and we tried to repair those overnight, and we weren't completely successful in doing so, which is going to cause a little bit more work today. As a result of that, we're going to need to delay the start of our launch countdown a day in order to accomplish the repairs required for those leaks that we had. And that would also move our launch date out one additional day to the 2nd of November from the 1st. So I'll talk a little bit about the issues that we have right now. As I mentioned, while we were doing our pressurization last night, our right-hand orbiter maneuvering system helium tank, it vented down unexpectedly when we were venting the ground side. Normally that doesn't happen. Those are generally isolated from each other, which indicated we had an issue with our air half or flight side coupling on between those two quick disconnects that fit together that allow the gases to flow back and forth. So we did attempt, as I mentioned, to do some troubleshooting and repairs on that were unsuccessful. We did, when we took the air half coupling or the flight side off, we did notice there was part of a seal or an O-ring in there that looked like it came from the ground half side. We did remove that, attempt to remate the disconnects and the couplings, and we still were unsuccessful with the repairs. So our forward plan at this point is to change out both the flight side and the ground side of those couplings, and we're going to work on that throughout the day. We've already been putting plans in place this morning to do that. We do, as a result of that, when we did our pressurization last night to the flight mass on the orbiter maneuvering system, we're going to have to vent those tanks back down again in order to do those repairs and removal and replacement of those couplings. And then as we go back in throughout the day, then we'll have to do some additional leak checks and make sure that those things are ready to fly again before we hook them back up together and pressurize to our flight mass again. The big part of that whole process is the repressurization of those tanks, which is about 2 shifts or nearly 16 hours of work. The actual repairs and removal and replacement of those parts isn't very complicated, and we've done it in the past. These types of couplings are we have had issues with different ones in the past, and so it's fairly common when we have to go off and do these, and it's a well-known process, and the folks do a really good job at that. But that's kind of the thing that's driving us, is the need to depressurize our tanks and then repressurize those. That repressurization of the tanks requires a pad clear, which precludes us from doing the normal things that we would do during the launch countdown. So as that goes throughout the day, we would not be able to pick up the launch countdown this afternoon if we had our pad clear doing the rest of those operations during the repressurization of those tanks. So that's why we made the decision to push off 24 hours for the start of the countdown and subsequently the launch date as well. We do have a couple of other smaller items. There was another issue with on our nitrogen side. It was a ground side tank fill, another one of those couplings that we're going to take the opportunity to fix when we get into the countdown as well. But that does not require any of the clears or the different things. It's a minor issue, and we can do that in parallel with the rest of our work. So as a result of those changes, that moves our launch countdown call to stations over a day, and we'll begin now at 1:30 on Saturday, and then that'll move our launch time out until Tuesday the 2nd at 4:12 for the beginning of the window and 4:17 for the middle of the window, which we normally shoot for. Some of the major events, our earliest tanking then would be at 6:52 on Tuesday morning as we work towards getting into that operation. We do have our Flight Day 3 and Flight Day 3 and 4 capabilities throughout our launch window. I think we maybe have talked that in the past. As it turns out, Tuesday is simply a Flight Day 3 rendezvous only, which makes our window about 10 minutes or so. So it'll be kind of a normal opportunity. Every other day after that, we have some Flight Day 4 capability, which essentially just adds a couple of minutes to the window and changes when we rendezvous with the station. We have plenty of pad hold time this time. We have 8 days of liquid hydrogen, 7 of liquid oxygen, which is good because our window of opportunity to get off the ground is up through and including the 7th of November. So that would give us 6 days of attempts to get off the ground between the 2nd and the 7th. We will not be required to do any top-offs during that time frame if in fact we needed to use more days in going downstream. The mission's 11 days, as I think you all are aware of, with 1 contingency and 2 weather days. And the mission would bump a day over to Saturday the 13th at about 11 o'clock in the morning, just after that. We do expect lots of crowds and lots of interest in this launch. We got a lot of visitors coming to KSC, a lot of visitors coming to the local area. We have an air show over the weekend as well. We expect some folks to stay over from that to watch the launch. So we do expect a lot of folks in the county. And as many of you are aware, that's also Election Day on the 2nd. So there will be a lot of people out and about on that day. I think we've done a lot to encourage the folks that work at the Space Center to take the opportunity to do early voting and those types of things and make people aware of all those things to encourage them because it would be a challenge with all the folks around the area to be able to get out on a launch day and get out and get that voting done. So I think folks have done a pretty good job taking advantage of it as much as possible. So I think we're really happy that we have the folks and the teams that are here to be able to handle these types of things. These types of challenges are not uncommon for the team to step up and do what needs to be done. We're going to fly this vehicle when it's ready to go. And we'll take a look at it later today and make adjustments as required as far as the work we got to do. But I think we'll be able to get that done, and we're looking at getting into call stations tomorrow. That's it. Thanks.
Kathy?
Well, the weather is looking very windy today, and then it improves for the weekend for the air show, and also as we get into Monday. And then as we get to Tuesday, we start getting concerned about some moisture that's going to be coming back up from the south as a strong trough dips into the Texas area in the upper levels. We think that trough's going to get cut off in that area. So the moisture will feed up from the south, but we're not expecting that front to come into the area mid-next week. Now, some of the models the last few days were actually toggling back and forth on that, but typically they do that with cutoff lows, and we typically see that a lot of times the lows just end up sitting in place over the area. So what we're expecting is that they'll sit in place, that low will sit in place over the Texas area. So with the moisture, we mainly are concerned about low cloud ceilings and a chance for some isolated showers in the area of the shuttle landing facility for the return to launch site abort constraints. And so with that, we have a 30% chance of KSC weather prohibiting launch on Tuesday. We'll go ahead and get into our satellite picture. One thing to note is we do have a tropical storm Sherry that's out in the Atlantic, pretty much straight off to our east. That's not going to be an issue for us as the trough comes down and pushes that off to the northeast. One area we are watching is a wave that is down off of southeast of the Lesser Antilles. That tropical wave has a 60% chance of becoming a tropical cyclone, according to the Hurricane Center right now, within the next 48 hours. So with that, we'll be watching that. It should track northwest into the Caribbean over the next 4 to 5 days. And that's something we'll just keep watching as we get towards launch day. It's likely not going to be an issue for launch day in this area, but one thing I always like to keep an eye on is for the SRB recovery ships as they're recovering the following 2 days after launch. Again, though, right now, a lot of uncertainty with that, and a lot will depend on what happens with that on where that upper level low ends up being in about 5 to 6 days from now. So really won't be in our area around launch time, but we're looking for it on launch day to be somewhere south of maybe eastern Cuba or in the Hispaniola area on launch day. Going into our, let's go ahead and get into some of our forecasts. For our tanking forecast, we're expecting good weather overall, just some scattered skies. There's a slight chance for a shower whenever we get those onshore gradient winds, but this morning we're expecting just light and variable winds. And it's mainly going to be on the southeast once we start getting into the afternoon hours. But for this time period, light winds and no concerns for tanking. As we get into our launch forecast, we expect the winds to pick up from the southeast, 10 peaking to 15 knots. We do have a chance for a ceiling to occur. We have a scatter deck there at 3,000 feet. There is a chance it could become broken. That's just one of our concerns, and also a chance for a shower in the area. So with that, we have a 30% chance of KSC weather prohibiting launch. If we do, for the SRB recovery weather, it looks really pretty good out there. It just sees 3 to 4 feet, winds from the southeast, again 10 to 15 knots. No concerns for SRB recovery during the launch day. If we do happen to, I keep wanting to go into delay, but we also want to talk about our CONUS abort sites. We do have good weather expected there, and for our TAL sites, 2 of our TAL sites are good. Let's going into the tau site weather on the next slide. 2 of our tau sites are good, Zaragoza and Morón. There's a concern for a headwind at Istris, peaking up to 30 knots there. If we do happen to delay 24 hours, we do expect more moisture in the area, a mid-level ceiling to come in, and also some high clouds as well. Again, we are concerned there is a chance that scatter deck at 3,000 feet could go broken and become the ceiling. If that happens to occur, that would be a violation. Also, we do expect that there could be a chance for some isolated showers in the area, but we didn't want to overstate this too much because that low is so far off to the west, and so with that, we have a 30% chance of KSC weather prohibiting launch. For the CONUS sites on day 2, everything looks good. And for our tau sites, the weather actually improves at Istris, so we have 3 good tau sites if we happen to delay 24 hours. And if we happen to delay 48 hours, again, we have similar weather conditions for those 3 days with, again, a ceiling at 25,000 feet. There is a chance that that scatter deck, again, at 3,000 feet could go broken, so we'll be watching that each day. Winds do shift around more from the north on this day, 12 peaking to 18 knots, a little bit stronger, but no violations there with the wind. And again, there could be an isolated shower in the area. We just have a chance for that. But overall, still just a 30% chance of KSC weather prohibiting launch. The abort landing sites in the U.S. look good on day 3. And the tau sites also look good with good weather overall out in that area. So overall, we're mainly just going to be watching for that moisture coming up from the south, looking for just a chance for a ceiling or a shower in the area, but overall a 30% chance of KSC weather prohibiting launch.
Okay, we'll open it up to questions now. Please state your name, news affiliation, and please wait for the microphone to come around. Start off with Marcia.
Press with 2 questions for Jeff. Any relation whatsoever with the previous fuel leak or any of the repairs that may have been going on attached to that? And secondly, well, you can answer that first, then I'll take it.
No, this is completely different than any of the other stuff that we've had to work on. This particular OMS pod, the fuel leak that you had referred to earlier was a seal on a crossfeed flange, which is in a completely different location than this. These are fairly common as far as when we have issues with these QDs, and they're not significant as far as the ability to repair them. And so we've done that in the past plenty of times.
And how sure are you that it is the couplings? I mean, could it be something else that might even take longer to repair?
Well, we believe just based on what we saw on it, the coupling itself with the seal, actually some seal material that shouldn't have been there, we believe that because of that and the leak that it had, all of the other areas on the pod itself did not have any leaks. We were able to isolate the areas and those types of things. So we feel pretty confident from that perspective that the rest of the vehicle is in very good shape, and that these are some isolated things that we just need to repair.
James Dean from Florida today. Forgive me, I just want to make sure I'm understanding kind of where the leak issues are. Is it at the attachment between the lines you're using to load the gas and the vehicle? Is that
on the pod itself? There's an area in which there are different couplings where we can hook up lines to them that have either gas lines or fluid lines that connect to those areas, and this is under a normal servicing panel that's there. One of those lines that is a helium line that we use to pressurize these tanks to flight mass is in between that connection and the vehicle is where we had the leak, and we found some material there that says that there may be some contamination in that poppet on the flight side. Even though we were able to get it to seat to some extent, we're still concerned that it may not seat throughout the flight. So we want to make sure that we have a good understanding of that and change it out, as well as the ground side when we reconnect and go ahead and pressurize those tanks.
And you're talking about the fuel leak. Also, this pod was removed during the flow to replace a helium valve. That's also unrelated. Just kind of coincidence that all these things are happening in or around the area of this particular pod.
Yeah. And again, the fact that we have the ground half couplings or even flight half couplings that leak is fairly common in as much as that we do see those during servicing operations and those types of things, and we often repair those either during those operations or in between missions and stuff. They have a propensity to have some leaks and some issues, especially during the mating process. You can have some issues with those. But these are completely separate locations, completely separate events.
Okay, Bill?
Bill Harwood, CBS. Just to follow that for a second, where that access panel is, if I'm looking at the back of the pod and there's an OMS rocket nozzle, is the panel somewhere on that surface or is it
Yes.
somewhere else? That's where it is.
Yes, it's on the 5902 door, which is on the main servicing panel that's on that side. In the vertical, that would be underneath and coming up that way, and there's a rack that goes up there.
You mentioned traffic on Election Day. If it comes down to that's when you guys decide to do your launch. I realize this is not a question for you and it's for upper management, but since you're here, can you imagine that they would give any consideration to going to Wednesday since you'd still have 5 launch days and avoid the traffic with schools letting out and people trying to vote and all of that going on at the same time you guys are trying to launch?
The ability for us to launch on Tuesday actually becomes a little less complex than it would have been if we would have launched on Monday. The issue becomes an issue for us during this if we were to not be able to launch and had to do a scrub turnaround. The ability to send people home through the traffic and the types of things that we're expecting, combined with maybe some additional folks that are out for doing voting, would be more of an issue for people to be able to leave the Space Center to go home, get some rest, and come back to work. That won't happen until after that event. So it wouldn't really affect our first day of launch on Tuesday. It would be more a concern for Wednesday. We've set up a process in place to make sure that we understand through the supervisory chain that folks are able to get home, get appropriate rest, and get back to work. And if there are issues, we've set up some hotlines and some other types of things that we can make sure that we have all the right folks here and the ability to do the right thing with the team. And we'll make that evaluation prior to going into tanking if we need to.
Just for the record, you guys are pressing hard to make Tuesday if you can make it. And those issues, traffic, election, whatever, won't be a factor in the decision to press ahead.
Right now, that's the plan, correct.
How about Ken in the front? Yeah, sorry.
Hi, thank you. Ken Kramer for Spaceflight Magazine and the Planetary Society. Can you talk a little bit, Jeff, about the history of this type of repair? Is there any issue with it being, since you found it at the pad instead of in the VAB or the OPF, any difficulty with access or change in access?
Well, normally we wouldn't find this type of event in the VAB because we don't have these systems connected in that facility. Occasionally you will see this type of thing in the OPF, but often it's during when we're actually doing the fluid transfers and some of the gas transfers that we would do at the pad. And that servicing operation is normally performed at the pad because they're hazardous operations and they're performed at that particular location. We do also hook up these type of connections when the pod is removed from the vehicle down when it's doing its offline processing as well. So we do see those types of things. The repairs are generally the same in any of those locations, and generally it's just to remove and replace the components that they need to. And there's some soft goods in there and things, but they generally remove the whole poppet and replace it because it's easier to do so.
So has this particular repair ever been done at the pad before, or is this
yes.
the first time?
Sure.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Looking around for other hands. Anybody else? Okay, Marcia, you have a follow-up?
Associated Press for Jeff. What, as far as voting by the launch team, had you already taken that into account previously and instructed your teams to do early voting, or how are they going to be able to vote if they want to and also support a launch?
And that was something that we recognized, a long time ago, that the possibility for the dates to line up could be a realistic event. So we did encourage the team, we have throughout the entire pad flow, to take advantage of early voting, absentee voting, any other types of means, because we certainly want to give everybody the opportunity to get out and do that on Election Day, if they were unable to do so on Election Day. So we want to make sure that everybody has the ability to vote and to do those types of things. So I think we've done a pretty good job overall of making people aware that there could be potentially those things line up. And it would generally just be the folks that are there on launch day itself. It's the launch team, even though that's a lot of folks, but a lot of other people are not necessarily there. And the early voting process, I think here, at least in Brevard, goes all the way through, including Saturday. And we've, like I said, we've been encouraging folks right along, providing information about where they can do voting and those types of things throughout the flow. So,
Approximately, inclusive of?
in the prime firing room, there's probably about 125 folks in the prime firing room. There's a lot of other support functions that are out here, though, of course.
Okay, and James?
James Dean for Florida Today. Jeff, could you just detail again exactly the timing of the go-forward plan? when should these couplings have been replaced? When will the repress start and finish? And therefore, when will we know for sure that you are go to start, GALD stations, pick up the countdown, all that tomorrow?
The details of exactly how those are working out are in a meeting that's going on currently, because this is really a late-breaking item, as you all are probably aware. So we are working out the details of exactly how, and we're sequencing the work. We started with the tank vent, which is already done at this point, to get us into a configuration so we can begin doing that additional work. We're prepping to do the coupling removal and replacements. We also have to gain access and remove another door and do some additional vent downs prior to getting into the final repress later. But it'll be this afternoon sometime. I don't have those specifics on the times because, again, those meetings are going on as we speak. For the removal and replacement of the parts,
Yeah, okay.
before we'll be able to get into the remainder of the
So
press.
your confidence level in turning around for the second is very high then?
Right now I think it is. And again, it'll as always is contingent upon the work, but we're very confident in the workforce. We trust their ability to do this job. There's just plenty of experience out there on this, so right now we don't have any real concerns.
Okay. Question?
I was just asking about the likelihood on Tuesday. I know with I understand the election's not having any consideration as to whether or not you guys are going to go up, but the likelihood of it happening that day, I know we have a lot of people wondering, it's going to be an intense day, but the likelihood of it happening on Tuesday, what do you see, which was at this point?
Well, assuming we get the repair done, which at this point we're assuming that we are, we would launch on that date as a launch date. I think that that was asked a little bit earlier, but we would use that date if in fact we can get the work done to get to that point.
Bill?
Just one more really quick one. What is the nitrogen in this case used for? The issue with the nitrogen coupling, what is that system used for?
It's used both for valving and also for ullage pressure on some of the smaller tanks that we have in there.
Okay, any other questions?
Chow for space.com. Question for Jeff. You mentioned that when the leaks were discovered, you tried to do some overnight repairs. I'm just wondering if you could go into a little bit more detail about what you attempted to do and why they were unsuccessful overnight.
Well, the standard process is to remove and inspect both sides to see if there's any obvious either contamination, scoring, things that may have caused the system to leak. And then if they look good, we'll go ahead and remate them and then try again. Sometimes they reseat themselves, these poppets do. Sometimes we can bump up the pressure a little bit, cause them to reseat, and we try all of those different things. And in this case, we did see some contamination there. As I mentioned, there was some portion of a seal there that should not have been in that location. We removed that, remated, and attempted to try to get the system to lock up. And we did get it to eventually lock up, but we weren't really comfortable with that configuration at this point, knowing that there was possibly some contamination in that poppet. So.
Mark Boucher, Space Ref. How many times has this happened at the pad?
I don't have the exact number, how many times. We can probably get that at some point.
Down for you. Okay, anything else? Okay, not seeing any other questions. I guess it's needless to say, but I guess I'll say it. The TV schedule and briefing schedules are in flux, and we're in the process of reevaluating that right now to get all that locked in, so I can't exactly tell you when our next briefing will be. But please stay tuned to NASA.gov and to www.nasa.gov/shuttle. That'll have the updated shuttle schedule as well as the briefing schedule, and we'll have that on later today. Thanks for joining us.